Welcome to BAM It with John Michael and Mari, covering all things business, accounting, management, marketing, and IT, the place where businesses and entrepreneurs find the forest through the trees.
And hello, guys, and welcome to BAM It today. Today, we're going to be doing another Billism episode with our good friend and mentor, Bill Kelley. As always, BAM It's brought to you today by Peridot Consulting, Inc. and Marketing Outpost. And we are here with Mari as well.
Hello.
She's sitting in the back corner.
Hello.
And we have Bill.
And we do have Bill. Bill, thanks for joining us today.
And if you want to know who Bill is, listen to the first episode called Introduction to Billisms.
Yes, Bill is a good friend of ours. He's a partner at Peridot Business Group, LLC. And world experience. Listen to the first one. So anyway, Bill, what's the Billism today?
Well, today's Billism is managers tend to manage, but leaders take people to a better place. What I mean by that is a recent Gallup poll I was just reading was that the top two reasons why thousands of people in a Gallup study are promoted to become a manager is because they have success in their prior non-management job is number one. And number two, length of service for the company. Those two reasons do not necessarily set that person up for success.
So they have success in their prior job or management job. Did I hear that?
Prior job. For instance, a salesperson is the best salesperson in the company. So because of their best salesperson, we're going to make them a sales manager who is leading other salespeople.
So prior good performance gets you promoted. And then the other one is just, you've been here for 30 years, we might as well upgrade you.
Yep, let's upgrade you.
But let me clarify this from what I hear from you. Those two conditions don't necessarily mean you'll be good in your new promoted position.
Absolutely correct. They take that one step further. It's also been proven that people leave managers, they don't leave companies.
Well
One
said.
in two people will leave a manager, but not the company. They like the company, but they don't like the boss, if you will, that they report to. And again, in that vein, companies don't often look at how much does it cost to turn an employee. When an employee turns, you start at the process of, okay, you've got to start advertising for that new employee, the amount of money that's spent on that. Then you've got the orientation process. Then you've got the onboarding process. All those cost money. And then we tend to think that the minute I hire that new employee, they're revenue producing and or they're controlling expenses. No, they're not. They're not effective until after they've been trained, they've been onboarded, and they get themselves settled in. And then you look at the negativity that happens when you have a person that turns. A person turns mentally before they physically turn. And I see that they tend to turn into what I call energy vampires. They suck the energy out of the company. They suck the energy out of the people that they deal with, both internal customers and external customers. So again, when you look at all those things that I just mentioned, you can put some dollars and cents to it, but the sense is that you can't calculate all those numbers.
Yeah, I'm sure all of us, if we think back through the jobs we've had, we can think about the jobs that when you first get them, everybody's excited for the job, but then you sort of start becoming unhappy. And what are some of the reasons you become unhappy? And it's generally not because of the job itself, though it could be. It's sometimes just because of the leadership or the internal politics or something like that. And like you said, it's people leave managers, they don't leave jobs.
So that leads me to a good question. What is the difference between a manager and a leader?
A manager manages day to day, doesn't really change too much and just responds to the need, where a leader has a little bit more foresight. And in foresight, meaning let's take people to a better place. What does that look like? That looks like taking the people they're responsible to, not for. Responsible to, what does that mean? That means setting them up for success. Setting a person up for success means looking at the heart, the internal part of an individual. What's their passion? Let's start with that. What's their passion? What do they want to do in life? What are they good at? It's called talent management, taking that employee's talent and matching it up with the needed skill for the company. If you can do that, no longer is that employee looking at it as a job. They're looking at it as, wow, this is something I like to do. And by the way, I get paid for it. What a wonderful thing.
That's very well understood in the entertainment industry. They don't try to take a known country singer and have him become a hip hop singer. So, in the same way, I think businesses, I agree with you, should identify somebody's really core strengths and skills or talents and then maximize those.
Recognizing people's authenticity based on their individual strengths and giving them that freedom to do what they're best at every day. That's the bottom line. And when you're looking at talent management, again, taking the talent, the inward talent of that individual, and focus more on that than really looking at the strengths of an individual. I think the strengths and the talents go hand in hand. The recent win by Clemson was interesting to me because when the coach was interviewed afterwards, they asked him, they said, "Coach, what is the secret to your success in your coaching that Clemson University went all year and did not lose a football game?" He said, "I appeal to the heart of each individual." And that resonated with me is that he's saying exactly what I'm saying. He appealed to the heart, the inward heart, and taking that heart and then matching it up with the skill set and the strength of that individual as a football player. But looking at the heart of the individual first.
I like that. Can you read that quote again? You started off with very slowly, though.
Recognizing people's authenticity based on their individual strengths and giving them the freedom to do what they do best every day.
That's great, and it's get them to be passionate about what they do, going after what they, truly want to do. Their resume is their resume. That's their talents. That says what they want to do. But part of me, I'm hearing this, and I'm thinking, is some of this easier said than done? And what I mean is, how do you do that? If you're the person that wants to get promoted and you want to do that, or if you're the leader that wants to encourage that, how do you do that? It seems easier said than done sometimes.
Yes and no. It's an educational process. There's a saying that people are not born leaders, but they can be developed in becoming leaders. But then there's people out there say, well, you're a born leader. Kind of disagree with both of those is that the minute you think you've arrived at the beginning of the end, if you will, that it's an ongoing process. And a leader is a student of human nature and a performance specialist. Okay. When you're raising kids, you're told treat them all alike by treating them differently. Treating them differently? Why? Because they are different. Okay, treating them all alike so you're consistent in what you do, so nobody feels favoritism or anything like that. But focusing in on the individuality of that individual. I've been blessed in being able to develop a program called Leadership Skill Builders. And the leadership skill builders, are several topics, but it starts out first things first, helping that individual understand what the interview process looks like. How to hire the best employee to begin with, and what you look at. Past performance is an indicator of future performance. Yes, that's the number one thing most people focus in on, but they don't focus in on reality questions, in my opinion. But oftentimes when you're interviewing an employee, you want to hire that person because you're short on people, so you're going to kind of sugarcoat it. You're not going to give them the reality questions that you should be giving. And I look at reality questions, and I look at really tough questions. For instance, if I'm interviewing someone that's going to be cleaning rooms, instead of making it all fluff and glorified, questions like, well, what do you feel? Or what do you think that if I asked you to go help Sally to finish cleaning her rooms at the end of the day? And you look at the verbal and nonverbal. That person is probably going to, because they want the job, is going to say, well, okay, well, I don't have a problem with that. How about if I do it again next day? How about if I do it again the third day? Those are reality questions. Those are actual reality questions that are going to happen if you're cleaning rooms. And again, you're looking at the nonverbal, you're looking at the verbal, but you're also looking at that breaking point. Okay? So again, it starts with that process. Then it starts with setting them up for success. Setting up for success means orientation, onboarding, and continuous development of that person. I don't like the word training. Training has a start and a finish. Development is an ongoing process.
Bill, I've heard you share a story in the past, and I'd love for you to share it for our listeners today about your time at Grove Park, and you witnessed a manager showing the one of the new dishwashers their plates. And if you can share that story, it's a great story.
Thank you. That is one of my favorite stories. John Michael said, I was making my rounds in the morning, and there was a supervisor with a brand new employee. And this is the onboarding process. Already been through orientation. Okay, you sign the paperwork and all that kind of stuff, and you get a broad overview of the company. But now this is the onboarding. So the supervisor had the employee by the dish station and had the employee pick up a plate off the buffet station and said, look at this plate. He said, and the employee looked at the front. He said, what do you see? I see a clean plate. He said, look at the back. An employee flipped the plate over on the back, and he says, oh, I see it clean too. And he said, let me share something with you. He said, a lot of restaurants don't wash the back of the plates. They wash the front. But if you think about it, you're stacking the plates, dirty plates on top of each other, and oftentimes the back of the plate gets overlooked. He said, pick up a fork. He said, what do you see? And he says, nothing. He says, good. How many times, he said, you've been to a buffet station or a restaurant, you pick up a fork, and there's dried egg in there, or there's dried substance on there. Point being, as he continued to share with the employee, he says, your job is important. He said, you set the buffet up for success. He said, the chef could prepare the best food, to have the best presentation, the best flavors, the best smell coming off that food. But if you get a dirty utensil, he said, it ruins the whole thing. So he said, I want you to understand how important your job is. You're just not a dishwasher. You're setting the stage for success.
Yeah, I've always loved that story because it just shows how important it is. True. You can go to the best restaurant in the world, but if you have a dirty plate or a dirty glass or lipstick stains, it ruins the chef's hard work and how important everything is. And I think that's a great example of, developing correctly within the topic of what we're talking about today.
That's also a great example of true leadership, because that supervisor wasn't just saying, here's the dishwasher, here's how you operate it, here are your hours, now get to it. He really decided instead to use that opportunity to bring them into their role within the entire organization and their role as it pertains to their customer service. And that's something that a lot of, I would say, managers don't do, but leaders do.
Correct. And at Peridot Business Consulting, one of the things that we do is we have a skill builder series where we help supervisors become leaders of their people. And I said it starts out with the interview process. We have dealing with conflict, setting people up for success as far as the development process, et cetera. It's a 12 subject series, if you will, on skill builders for people to become leaders instead of just managing day to day over and over again.
Yeah. Well, Bill, we appreciate you, as always, sharing these insights and this wisdom. And managers manage and leaders take people to better places. Did I summarize that correctly?
Well done, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we want to thank everybody, and thank you guys for joining us today. Please be sure to review this episode. For more information on who we are or this podcast, please visit www.bammit.com. That is BAMM-IT.com. And we'll see you guys next time.
The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice and is for entertainment purposes only. The hosts and guests of this podcast may make terrible attempts at being funny, and this podcast does not defend the merits of this humor, nor does it guarantee that the humor will be successful. It is not guaranteed that you will find this as entertaining as the hosts find themselves.